Thank you for joining us today. My name is Allie Lilly. I'm a 2009 Trinity graduate and former Trinity athlete as well, and I now serve as the Associate Director for Athletic Giving and Engagement in our Development Office. I'm here today with Jacob Tingle and Twyla Huff to talk about some initiatives they started here on campus for our student athletes, focusing on leadership and career development. So before we get started, I want to introduce the two of them. Twyla began her career in higher education with a Master of Arts degree in Student Affairs and Administration in higher education from Ball State University. She has over 10 years of experience in career coaching, program management, and external relations. As the director of the Office of Career Services, Twyla regularly connects with employers, faculty, and alumni for engagement, recruitment, and career advisement for Trinity students and alumni. Additionally, in the fall of 2015, she became co-director of the Center for Experiential Learning and Career Success, which is home to the Office of Career Services and the Office of Experiential Learning. Dr. Jacob Tingle is the director of the university's Office of Experiential Learning and also serves as Trinity's NCAA faculty athletics representative. Both roles bring him in direct contact with student athletes on a regular basis, and he focuses on helping students to bridge the gap between theory and practice and connect their academic inquiry with real-world decision-making. He has also been chair of the Sports Management Faculty Advisory Committee for 9 years, is co-chair of Trinity's Arts, Letters, and Enterprise minor program, and is also an assistant professor of the Practice and Business Administration. Before transitioning into his current roles, he was an assistant and then associate athletic director at Trinity from 2000 to 2009, and he earned his Doctor of Education degree from the University of Texas at San Antonio in educational leadership, and much of his research focuses on the sociological aspects of management, contract employees, and volunteers. So thank you guys for joining me. I'm really excited to talk about some of the new stuff you guys are doing on campus and a lot of the resources y'all can offer our student athletes. Yeah. So Jacob, you wanted to start off by kind of talking about our student athlete body as a whole and kind of who they are and what they're doing on campus, basically.
Yeah. First off, just thanks. We're really excited that you had the idea for having a conversation with Twyla and I, and especially being able to talk to some alumni about some of the new things and some of the changes that have happened in the last couple of years on campus. So thanks.
Yeah.
And just in terms of, I thought it's important for folks in the audience to understand a little bit about the context of who our athletes. Who our athletes are, and
Sure.
and just in terms of highlighting some of the past successes on the field and on our courts. That if you're a Trinity grad, you probably are aware of some of these things, but it's also kind of nice to see these in print.
Yeah.
Since '92. We've had 225 conference championships, 18 conference president's trophies, which is awarded to the best all-around school, which is a league record, a conference record. We've won, Trinity has won the conference president's trophy now 7 straight years, which also ties our previous record as the longest streak. We've had 5 NCAA Division III team national championships, and again, that's just in the Division III era. In the Division III era, we've had 10 individual Division III national champions and championships. We've also finished in the top 25 of the Athletic Directors Cup, which is based on NCAA appearances, not conference championships.
Right.
We've finished in the top 25 14 times in the last 23 years, which is remarkable. For one reason, they count 24 sports, and we only have 18. So for us to have that kind of level of success is amazing. But I think what's more important for me and for Twyla and you being a former student athlete here, understanding that our coaches and our athletes have high expectations of performance on the field, are on their courts, but they look a lot and act a lot like the general student, at Trinity, which is really what the Division III model is supposed to be. So I just wanted to share a few of these things also. Approximately 80% of student athletes are involved in some other club or organization on campus, and that could be fraternities, sororities, it could be a leadership organization, it could be a cultural organization, a cultural club. So again, approximately 80% of student athletes are involved in one of those clubs. So they're not just competing at high levels and having 20 hours of practice time per week plus competition. They're also really engaged in other ways. And then some of the things that I'm really proud of, both as an alumnus and as a member of the faculty, as the faculty athletic rep, the FAR, are some of the retention rates.
Right.
So again, just to highlight some of these, because I think these are things that we as an institution do a really good job of talking about internally, but to highlight to some of the listeners. So the first year retention rate, the last report we have is from those who entered in fall 16, the way they calculate things. Female student athletes, 100% of that freshman class was retained, which is higher than all first year females. And then the male student athletes were also retained at a higher level, just a couple of percentage points than the general male first years. And so again, that's I think speaks to the kind of students that our coaches recruit, that when they come to Trinity, they stay right at the same levels as kind of the normal student. And then the 4-year graduation rates. The last cohort that these have been reported for were 2013, but 83% of NCAA athletes, of female athletes, graduated in 4 years, compared to 75% of the general student population, and the overall rate is just the athlete rate is just a little bit off on the 4-year rate, but on the 6-year graduation rate, our athletes actually graduate at a higher level, 86% compared to 80%. So again, not only our athletes are exceeding, doing exceedingly well in competition, they look like the student body. They're retained at higher rates, graduating at higher rates, if not above. And then also, just one other really cool thing is the team GPAs. Our athletic department GPA for fall was 1/10 of a point off of the total Trinity GPA, and that's been pretty consistent. I've got numbers going back to spring 2008, and so over that last 20 plus semesters, our athletes are again basically on pace with the quote unquote normal, the non-athlete student population. And I just think that's really important from a context standpoint. And when Twyla and I, when we were having this conversation about, when do they have time to come to career fairs and come to career exploration activities, because they're so busy here, they're as involved as everybody else, and they're kicking behind in the classroom, right? So what often falls in the gap is some of that the career exploration pieces. So.
Sure, for sure. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think it's been, as a coach and now in the development side of things, it's always amazing to see what our current students and our alumni are accomplishing, even after they leave. It's extremely impressive.
Yeah.
And I think, we don't always know. Like you said, it's not always advertised openly. It is internally, but not always publicly, just in terms of what they're doing on and off campus. So, Twyla, you kind of can talk more about the specific programs or resources that your office is doing that help them with that career exploration and kind of develop themselves as potential employees, and how they can interview properly. So can you talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you're doing as well?
Yes. So our approach is probably something that would be very familiar to most folks who follow the marketing and promotions for the university, which is the Discover, Grow, Become model. And we basically have taken that and adapted that to be able to use for career development. So the discovery piece is when we're encouraging them to engage with faculty about conversations that talk about what's next. How can I apply what I'm learning in the classroom to what I'll be doing in life after Trinity? We also like to talk with them about informational interviews with people who are in professions that they're interested in. Alumni, you've mentioned 1869 Scholars.
Yes,
That's
yeah.
a program that we do for mentorship, which is a great opportunity for athletes and for any student that's interested in learning more about one, who they are and the skills that they have, the values that they have, but then also what does life look like for a Trinity graduate? What does that transition look like? So the discovery piece is discovering more about themselves, more about their career interests, and more about what's available to them. The grow piece is more so, okay, now I have a better idea of what I'm capable of, what I'm interested in, what's available to me. Now I need to take steps to be able to become competitive for those types of opportunities, get more exposure to determine whether it's truly something I'm interested in. And so the way that we engage them with that is encouraging them to do experiential learning, visiting with Jacob's team, whether they want to do summer research, whether they want to do internships, because truthfully, that's what's going to really make them competitive. And then finally, that does make them competitive for being able to become. And so when you look at what's happening with them becoming, that's with them being able to apply for graduate schools, apply for job opportunities, become who they see themselves being based on their skill sets, based on their interests, based on the opportunities that they've taken advantage of and that they choose to take advantage of. The biggest thing for athletes is because they're so busy, sometimes it's difficult for them to find time to come in or to prioritize the importance of coming in. And so we really want them to start seeing us pretty early on in the first year of their time at Trinity so that we can guide them through the process.
Yeah, that probably would be my first question is, you know, do you feel like the discover part of it is really the hard part, is really getting them to feel comfortable coming in? Because I think a lot of them don't feel confident yet in talking about their kind of path and being an athlete at Trinity and what that really means, really understanding what that can mean and how that can be interpreted in an interview. So do you feel like a lot of the time that's really where the coaching begins, is kind of getting them to feel confident in talking about themselves?
Yes, I think it's being able to recognize that there's a really important simultaneous action that needs to be happening with what they're focusing on with academics and what they're focusing on in sports, and as Jacob mentioned, in student involvement. And so when you're looking at student involvement and you're looking at sports and you're looking at academics, it's like, okay, my plate is full. And so you keep talking about this whole career planning thing, and I'll do that senior year. And so it really is a misconception to believe that this is something I can wait until junior, senior year. Especially when you look at the number of students who transition into professional athletes. And so when you're looking at that and you look at the likelihood that majority of these athletes are going to be doing something in the world of business or nonprofit or government, the question is, how are they preparing and when are they preparing? And so yes, the biggest challenge is getting them in pretty early on.
And so when y'all are doing this kind of career coaching and having them come in and talk with you guys, do you find that most of the interactions are probably best if they're one-on-one, or do you have a lot of group interactions? Do you have them focused on maybe what their major or their minor is? What do you feel like is the best approach in terms of connecting with a student?
So I think the best approach is coming in and having a conversation with a career advisor. We have our walk-in hours, and so being able to come in during walk-in hours, if the practice schedule doesn't allow for that, scheduling an appointment when it is something that they can do, and just having that first conversation. Some students are like, oh, I'm great, I'm ready, I'm good to go, and then they realize, 2.5 years in, they weren't great and ready and good to go. And then other students are like, I'm clueless and I feel like I should know a little bit before I go into the office, and that's not true. We meet you where you are. The sole reason that so many people choose Trinity University is for a customized experience, and that's what we offer.
And during orientation, do y'all talk to incoming freshmen about your services and resources?
We do. There's also been occasions where we've spoken with the students who come in early for orientation in whatever athletic group that they're a part of. But for the main orientation, we also do panels. Jacob and I sit on panels,
Okay.
and we do workshops
Okay.
that are available for the students to attend as well.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, so Jacob, I think you kind of had some more ideas on some additional resources, kind of maybe outside of your office or in addition to what the two of you are doing with the center, that are also resources available specifically to student athletes.
Yeah, one of the things that that Twyla and I, since becoming co-directors of the center, have really tried to focus on, just generally, is where are other offices, where are other departments on campus that we can collaborate with, right? And people who are doing exceedingly good work that we can dovetail in with, or people that we know, if they partner with us, maybe we're more likely to have good
Sure.
engagement from students. And so programming with Residential Life, for example, programming with student involvement. And now that you're in this role, it had been often kind of a bandwidth challenge for partnering with the Student Athlete Advisory Committee. But now that you're in this position, and then our previous relationship as student employee,
Yeah.
student employer, and
Yeah.
student employee, and having known you since you were 18 or 19, and
Yeah.
just having that
Yep.
rapport has
A long
been
time,
really
yeah.
easy,
Yeah.
to make some of these transitions happen. And so that's where I think understanding that we don't have all the answers, and we're not the smartest kids in the room, and that there's a lot of great things that are already going on
Sure.
Trinity's campus, and then also partnering with some academic units where
Okay.
there are likely to be lots of student athletes,
Yeah.
or where there are masses of student athletes. One area specifically that we do that is with our there's a class that I think it's almost all first-year football players, but I think there might be some other athletes in there too, and it's a 1 credit hour class that meets once a week. Dr. Hood in our office goes and talks to that group about just internship searches. You're not going to be looking for a while, but just here's who
Yeah.
I am, here's how I can help, here's who we are. I'm fairly certain she might partner with someone from career services, or she talks also about resume help and those kinds
Sure.
of things. So again, going to where 30, 40 student athletes
Yeah.
are. I know I go and talk to that class also a little bit about academics, but also
Okay.
some leadership development kinds of things, and how they can begin thinking of themselves even as first years as leaders on campus, and what does that mean to be role models. And through those experiences, I know that Erin has gotten an uptick and sees that level of comfort that she's a friendly, familiar face because she's gone to where
Yeah.
they are.
Sure.
Right. And then and same thing with me, that I because we get to speak to them in their class, they're like, oh well, I know that person. And I think that's where the success has been, and the way Twyla has reconfigured her team in terms of an academic liaison model.
Okay.
Right, and so maybe she can talk maybe a little bit more
Yeah.
about that in a minute. But I think that has helped, that there's a personal, when I walk in the door, there's walk-ins, but I also know that I can ask for somebody specifically based on either what my major is, or what I think I might
Yeah.
major in, or what kinds of jobs I might
Sure.
be thinking about. So,
Sure.
so I think that has been really wonderful. One of the things that I do when I have conversations with athletes in particular is talk about how important the summers are, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
certainly, I mean, there are some sports, basketball, swimming and diving, tennis, that really are truly 2-semester sports in terms
Yeah.
of competition takes place in each semester. But our basketball players, for example, do an exceedingly good job of utilizing that, mid-August to mid-October time, and then mid-March to mid-May time. I'm very impressed with how they utilize. They can't do stuff that
Right.
in the big bulk of the semester, but how they utilize the bookends. And but soccer, baseball, every sport, whether their competition seasons are 2 semesters. Again, you're not winning conference championships by not having spring ball or by not
Right.
having fall ball,
Yeah.
right? And so they're very engaged in those quote unquote off semesters. There are lots of great examples, and I can give a few of them, but there are lots of great examples of students who just figure it out and do a 10 to 12 hour a week internship. They can get an internship for academic credit, so that offers some support. even during their spring season or their fall seasons, depending on their sport. But I just tell them that, just plan on utilizing your summers effectively.
Yeah, of course.
Davis King and lots of others, Kevin Owen, a basketball player, they've gone abroad and then also done internships while they're abroad. Kevin's a
Right.
great example. He's a senior on the men's basketball team. He's done 2 summer internships in China on sport and different kind of sport marketing organizations. And he's also a Chinese language major. And so that's just a perfect example of someone who said, well, I can't do an internship when Joe student or Jane student can, but I'm going to take full advantage of some of the other programs that Trinity has. And they've gone on the Shanghai program. And so so those are some other coaching things that we do. Twyla mentioned undergraduate research. Gavin Husey is a great example.
Yeah.
He found a passion in a sociology class that then carried forward to a sport management class, and now he's made 2 presentations at national conferences and with a faculty member, and they're working on a publication for a peer-reviewed journal. And he's he's a full-time football player, right?
Yeah.
And doing all these things. So that's the other piece for me. I like to kind of highlight and hold up the Haley Wilsons of the world and the Joseph Insurers of the world, and to say, hey, if she can do it, if he can do it, then it's a matter of choice now, right? You're choosing how you spend your time or not.
Yes.
And then one of the things, and I'd like actually maybe for you to talk a little bit about it with the conversations that we had when you took over this role and reconceptualized what the Student Athlete Advisory Committee could be. We talked a little bit about creating a liaison model, and so I think I'd like to hear from you and how that has materialized and how it's working.
Well, and it's funny because, Gavin and Haley and a lot of the kids that you mentioned, those are really the SAC representatives that come to our meetings and represent their teams. The examples that you guys know of right off the top of your head are the student athletes that are also really seen as both kind of the team captain role, and that I really utilize as the Student Athlete Advisory Committee members to essentially promote events to their teams. And, someone like Logan Morrison, he, works in your office, and Jacob and I started talking, okay, what can I really do to get more of a relationship built between other departments on campus and our SAC. And I think that's one thing that, I've been doing SAC for a long time, but we really kind of minimized our role to being organizing fundraisers and volunteering events for our student athletes. But I think the more we have these roles pop up on campus and these centers like you guys have developed and these resources that are really new even since I began working here after I graduated, that I started to realize really we could do more that doesn't put more of a time commitment on these student athletes, but really utilizes what they're already doing. And so, we have a Res Life liaison she's an RA, and so she's working with the Res Life department that anytime they are coming up with a program or there's an event that she then, promotes that event with our SAC and makes sure the word gets out to our teams. And, Logan will help post career fairs and any flyers that you guys will put out from your office. And I think it's generally just a matter of making our student athletes more aware, because a lot of the time I think things get lost in the shuffle with their schedules. And so I think that's been great. And one thing that I think has also been helpful is Jacob helped me to create a T-Learn page, which for those of you who don't know what it is, it's essentially kind of like a website that professors and other people on campus will use to develop a class. You can provide resources, you can post events, you can put assignments on there, and the students can all sign up as members of these T-Learn pages, and anytime we post something they get a notification for it via email. And so in addition to the group text that we have, which I found really useful obviously, we have this T-Learn page, and so it's been nice because Jacob and Twyla will send me an email with an events information or a volunteer opportunity through our Give Pulse website, which is something that Scott Brown has also been working on in our experiential learning, just any volunteer opportunities through the Give Pulse site that we weren't maybe aware of because we weren't getting those notifications before. those will all be put on that T-Learn page, and then they get that notification, and they can then send that information to their teams. So it really has expanded in terms of the information I have access to by working with y'all, and then also just the information that our student athletes have access to, because I can kind of tailor, okay, these are the things that I really think are important for them to know about, that maybe they didn't know about before. And maybe they were events that were happening before, but I wasn't necessarily communicating directly with someone in charge of those events. So it's been great in terms of this role that I'm in now in the development office has really expanded my access and my connections on campus with other departments to kind of figure out, okay, what are we already doing, instead of creating more for them. What are we already doing that I can provide for them through other, avenues that they'll respond to, or that will put it in the front of their minds a lot better than we were doing before.
Yeah.
And then we still do the fundraising and volunteering opportunities, but that's really kind of based on what time they have available and what their team's interests are, because so many of them do their own opportunities a lot of the time as a team unit, and the coaches will also do a lot of fundraisers on their own as well. So it's really just kind of, we coordinate in those situations more than anything.
Well, the thing that I've really come to appreciate about that is that it's really, and this might sound bad, but it really is, it's not intended to, but it's allowed us to take the coach out of the communication cycle, because, our coaches are unbelievably busy
completely
people,
overwhelmed,
right?
yeah.
And their job is to win games, to retain their student athletes, to make sure they get weekly GPA reports, to make sure that their student athletes are performing at the high level in the classroom, to recruit the next group of student athletes, and to communicate with their graduates, right? I mean, the idea of like, hey, Coach McGinley, can you send this flyer out for me about a career fair or an activity that we're doing? It's almost an unfair expectation, right? And so utilizing SAC as this means of communication, it's put the communication channels in a direction where they're going to be most successful. And what the other piece, and this kind of spins into some of the leadership stuff that I want to talk about just a little bit, is it's positioning the Student Athlete Advisory Committee not just to be one representative from all the 18 sports as somebody who puts their hand up and is like, I guess I'll go to meetings or whatever. And to like, if you're actually going to be on SAC, it's a leadership position. This is a growth and development opportunity for you, and yes, you should put that on your resume.
100%,
and now, but you actually have something to talk about. Not that I was on SAC. Okay, I did this. Right. And I whatever that role is, right? And so that's one of the things that I think has been in some ways maybe an unintended or a bonus byproduct of
100%.
creating that model.
And I will say one thing too that's been interesting is even beyond kind of the roles that we talked about, liaising between other departments and SAC, it's also ever evolving. And so like Haley Wilson, she actually helped me with a digital strategy for a social media campaign for kind of leaders who are in the alumni community now, and she kind of helped me get quotes from student athletes, and so I think it's also something that's ever evolving and always changing, and so I feel like this is kind of the start to where we can be, and then and already I feel like it's made a positive impact. So.
Well, one of the things that in my role as the faculty athletic representative, as the NCAA FAR, which, and for those folks who don't know, just briefly, it's every NCAA institution has a member of the faculty who serves in that role. The way Trinity's divided the work is actually really beneficial. Most, if not all, of my work is student facing, and then we have another faculty member who liaises and works with faculty on faculty relations issues that as it relates to sports. But what that's meant is I now have really kind of a charge and get a charge out of looking at the NCAA website and and exploring leadership and scholarship opportunities and postgraduate internship opportunities and those kinds of things for our students. Brianna Ratliff, who's on the cross country and track team, is very interested in going into coaching. And post graduation, and she really specifically is interested in coaching at the Division III level. She's got a great role model in Coach Dom, and so knowing that, I was able to nominate her for a leadership seminar that occurred in conjunction with the NCAA convention last week. And so she was able to go, the NCAA picked up the tab, paid for everything, but most importantly than just paying for a hotel and flights, they also had a special leadership cohort. So they had some external consultants come in and do 2 days of leadership development and training with them.
Yeah.
And then she got to sit next to our athletic director, Mr. King, while he was casting the official university ballots at the convention floor. And so looking for opportunities like that, it's a nice kind of marriage of my faculty athletic role hat, but also this career exploration and experiential learning piece. Is like, how can I be on the lookout for those opportunities for our students that are going to positively affect them, their career exploration or postgraduate opportunities.
Sure.
And so that's how I'm excited about that role. One of the other things that we're working on is, and hopefully we'll be able to pull it off this semester, is doing a little half-day professional development training for members of the SAC. We're a strengths-based campus, as both of you know, and so being able to use Clifton Strengths Finders to help the student athletes understand what their strengths are, and then go to career services and learn how you can articulate what those strengths are. Right? There's real stuff, but you have to figure out how to talk about it.
Absolutely.
And then with relation to that is in partnering with a faculty member from healthcare administration with Jamie Thompson in student involvement. We did a day-long, a full 9-hour training session using the Leadership Challenge model, Kouzes Posner's well-known model. And again, huge shout-out to Mr. King for providing financial support. Huge shout-out to the Bingo Lancer Alumni Foundation for picking up half the tab. And that was really wonderful, just in terms of their commitment to, it's not a program that was for Lancers exclusively, right? And that many members of the Bingo Lancer fraternity took advantage of it, but for them to be that generous to say, hey, we care enough about leadership of our student athletes and of our fraternity sorority community that we're gonna spend a pretty significant amount of money on a program that doesn't just benefit me, kind of looking outside the circle. And so really big shout out to both of those folks and to Jamie and Jody Rogers and HCAD for putting that on. And we had 46 students. So this was the Tuesday before classes started in the spring semester. A lot of other things students could be doing, right? And that these students took it upon themselves to have that kind of ownership of their own career exploration, leadership development. And of the 46, I want to say 30 plus were student athletes. I should have that number off the top of my head, but there was a lot of folks who were athletes and also in fraternity sorority, but there was a big bucket that were not in fraternity sorority bucket, that were just student athletes. And so that's another example of being smart in terms of your collaborations and looking for those one-offs and finding where are the strengths. And we're hoping that and I should also say thanks to Cheryl Tynes and her office for providing some financial support too. Thank you, Dr. Tynes. But we're hoping that we're looking at the feedback that we get. Why this should just be a normal. This should be a regularly occurring event.
I was able to be there for the part of the morning session, and it was awesome. I mean, it was so organic for them to engage in conversations, and Dr. Rogers really did an amazing job talking to them, and really finding relatable material that was relevant to athletes and also fraternity and sorority members. And we even had an OREC leader there, which I thought was awesome. So I think all the feedback I've heard was really positive. So I thought it was great.
Well,
Yeah.
Twyla, do you want to? I know it didn't make this year, but you want to talk about the idea of that sophomore college boot camp, and because I think that's something that is really
with it.
interesting, and I think
Yeah.
there's a nice synergy potentially.
Yeah, I actually just spoke with Melanie about that a couple hours ago. So the sophomore boot camp was running the same day as
Okay.
that event. Marketing didn't happen as early, so we're definitely going to have to focus on
Yeah.
that in November as opposed to December when the students
Yeah.
have already gone home.
Yeah.
But the concept behind it is the career readiness approach,
Okay.
and so helping students who are sophomores exclusively understand what steps they should be taking, particularly during the breaks, and what they should
Yeah.
be preparing for the summer, to be able to do internships, to determine whether or not they want to start focusing on graduate school, medical school, law school, and then also to have a better understanding of like what study abroad looks like fit in
Sure.
their college career, that type of thing. So it's very career oriented in terms of planning now for what's going to happen over the next 2.5 years.
Sure.
Yeah. And my hopes is something like that might
Yeah.
can morph that into
Yeah.
an athlete specific
Yeah.
and thinking about
Yeah. Definitely.
is how can we help them specifically in that special population understand all of those all of those potential hurdles, but things that it's not really a hurdle. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be.
And sophomore year is such a discovery year. So I think that's probably the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, Twyla, one thing that I also wanted to mention, just because I've really enjoyed it, my sister actually participated in one of them, but the Humanities Day, and then also you're kind of doing a similar setup with Sports Management Symposium and Communications Day, and I think there's some other departments that I'm forgetting off the top of my head that do that, and I know you've got a lot of involvement in that, and you mentioned 1869 Scholars, but for alumni, there's a lot of opportunities for them to also help our students network a lot more than there used to be, in my opinion. And so would you talk a little bit kind of about how those work and kind of the concept behind them?
Certainly.
Yeah.
So we received funding from an individual who saw the value of helping those who are majoring in the humanities better understand how to prepare for life outside of Trinity. And so what happened was it was a partnership between, going back to what Jacob talked about, our liaison models. We have team members who focus on specific majors. And we have 2 of them who serve arts and humanities because that's such a large number of our majors. We also have the STEM and we have the School of Business and we have social sciences. The 2 who work for arts and humanities partnered with arts and humanities faculty to be able to put that day on using the sponsorship funds. They reached out to alumni recommended by faculty and then just alumni that we may have found who we know are doing things that might be of interest to students who are currently in arts and humanities but not quite clear what pathway to choose.
Sure.
And we do different types of career panels similar to that in different fields. We'll do it specifically for English or philosophy, or we'll do it broadly for humanities. We'll do them for communication. We'll do them for different areas just based on the collaboration that we're able to have with the faculty so that the students can see themselves in different career professions that maybe they didn't know existed.
Yeah. And I actually went to the one where my sister was a panelist,
Yes.
and I loved it because I had heard about it. I'm close with Ruben Dupertuis, and so we had talked about it before, just from the aspect of I was an English major and religion minor, and several of my classmates who were also athletes were also humanities majors. And so we had talked a little bit about it, and so I attended my first one this past fall, and I loved it because, it really gave students an avenue to ask questions that they may not be getting the answers from, from a professor or, and I think it was a good range of the age of the alumni, the career paths that they had taken, and then also it was really refreshing to hear from them kind of where they started out at Trinity and kind of when they figured out what they wanted to do.
Yes.
And so, not just from the aspect of it serving student athletes, but also just from a standpoint of it really was a really refreshing opportunity for current students to interact with an alumni in a no-pressure zone, in a space where, it really was social, but it was still an opportunity to ask more formal questions for them. And so I loved it, and I I think that probably is one of the areas where we could use those days a lot more than we do as a resource for our students. And so I hope that the attendance keeps growing for those. And now in my role in development, I really think it's such an important engagement piece for our alumni to come back on campus and interact with students, because, you really hear that the one uniting factor about what people love about Trinity and their experience is the group of people that they were on campus with, and the alumni are just such great people, and that current students are so amazing. And so those days were such great examples of building a connection or a relationship with an alumni and a current student, in addition to the 1869 Scholars Program that you mentioned, and then also the Young Alumni Leadership Academy. So I feel like those are also really key resources to remember, too, that even after you graduate, you can still help.
Yeah.
It's not just on you guys to provide those resources.
Yeah.
There are different ways that alumni can definitely connect with what we're doing. In fact, if you walk through the career fair, majority of the folks who are representing their organizations are alumni.
Yeah.
And our students love to see alumni at the career fair because
Sure.
they're like, okay, you were me and now you're you.
Yeah.
And that's great.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that one of the things that I value most about the education that Trinity students get is that it teaches them how to learn in a way that allows them to surpass some of their colleagues. And
Yeah.
so a lot of times we'll have students who will go into a profession that they hadn't really considered, and maybe they feel lukewarm about immediately after graduation.
Sure.
And then when you check back in with them 5-7 years later, they have either blossomed in that role or profession in a way that they never considered, or they've used what they've gained from those initial experiences to do something that they truly do understand and want to do. And so that's one of the things that when we talk about these leadership programs, when we talk about character building that happens as a student athlete, when we talk about coming in and having these conversations with career advisors, it's all about how they learn and how that really puts them in a strong position to be successful and to have satisfaction in
Yeah.
their lives concerning
course.
what they're contributing to in the community and what career paths they're going into.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
then
think-
coming back and talking about it too.
Yeah.
Well, right, yeah.
Yeah,
and that's the
exactly.
that's the thing that, and we've got a few of these resources that Twyla and I share with students that we're going to share
Yeah.
via the athlete website, but also we're going to post on LinkedIn some. So if there are alumni or students who are listening, who are on the webinar or who watch it later on the screen capture, there are some really good articles from Inc. and Forbes and Business Insider and some good outlets that talk about why companies specifically like to hire athletes, right?
Yeah.
And so this idea of if we can make sure that students at Trinity understand what Twyla was talking about, this idea of you have a special ability to know how to learn. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the uniqueness of the Trinity
Yeah.
education, right? But you as a student athlete, let's drill down even deeper.
Yeah.
What have you experienced on a regular basis that maybe, again, the non-athlete student hasn't? And if you know that organizations are looking for
Yes.
those characteristics, you need to make sure you're speaking that language and
Yes.
you're matching up
Yeah.
on your resume, on your cover letter. The stories you tell about
Absolutely.
yourself involve ideas about resilience and ideas about overcoming failure and ideas about making quick decisions.
Sure.
And if the decision's not good, learning from that, right? And how to work on
Yeah.
a team and how to work with people who are from different cultural backgrounds, people who are who maybe speak different primary languages.
Yeah.
All of these are things that employers want.
Absolutely.
Check. And you as an athlete are, as a Trinity graduate, are specially positioned
Yeah.
with those. And if our students aren't talking about those things, then they're missing out.
Absolutely.
And this is where I love that idea of what Twyla just was talking about. If you're an alumnus or an alumna and you were an athlete,
Yeah.
and you know that you talk about those things in your job today,
Yeah.
come back and pay it for. Come
Yeah.
back and let the current sophomore or the current junior or
Right.
senior and say, hey, you
Yeah.
need to really talk about this. This
Yeah.
is when I hire. This is what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And so that idea of that kind of mentoring. So we do a sport industry panel. We partner with Career Services, and we've done it long before I've had this job, where we bring alumni in the fall, and we do it at a time. Non-athletes are certainly invited,
Yes.
right? But
Yeah.
we schedule the event at a time where we know practices aren't.
Right.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that we've really tried to adjust and think about. Like, well, if we're scheduling something at 6,
Yeah.
who's not going to be able to come?
Sure.
Right? And so if just a start time at 7 or a start time at 7:30 or a start time at 7, and then on the flyer it says, come in your shorts,
Yeah.
and there will
Yeah.
be food. So you don't have to stop at maybe on the way from
Yeah,
getting
of course.
iced or whatever,
Yeah.
right? And so, you were talking before, like, can we create some kind of little badge that, like, this is an athlete-friendly event.
Yeah.
Like, we want you here.
Yeah.
Come in your,
Yeah.
whatever, your warm-up tops. But that's some of the things that again, before our sensors even existed, that I've really appreciated partnering with Twyla on, is those kind of panels that aren't necessarily geared exclusively to athletes,
Right.
but certainly catch a wide swath of what
Yeah.
athletes, who they might be interested in.
Yeah.
So,
And I definitely think that's been one of the most eye-opening and refreshing things about me transitioning from coaching into development is now interacting with you guys when I'm planning engagement opportunities with alumni. And, y'all have helped me conceptualize kind of a career fair that we're trying to do for student athletes in March, where we're bringing back athletic alumni to interact with student athletes. And so it's, you're talking to someone like you, and we're doing it in the gym, and we're doing it after their practices, and saying don't need to shower. I think that's been really awesome because, it was definitely not necessarily something that was always available to me when I was at Trinity or to alumni. I think that there was definitely people on campus who wanted to have athlete-friendly events, but it just didn't always work out. And I feel like you guys have really provided more outlets for them to, or for other people on campus like myself, to organize events that really do cater to them and really do, we want to develop programs specifically for them because they are such a large percentage of our population and they are so involved.
Yeah. I mean, when you're talking about 25% of the student body.
Yeah.
I mean,
and it's only getting larger.
Right.
I mean, it's our student body is growing, and so is our number of student athletes.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one thing, is that our resources available to them have also grown significantly since I graduated, I think. So, and even in the last 2 to 3 years, I feel like, really. So, I definitely think the landscape is changing, for sure.
Well, and to that point, one of the other things, this is not out of our center, but just understanding what other things are going on at the university level,
Right.
is our Center for International Engagement. Katsuo and his staff, Dr. Nishikawa and his staff are really encouraging faculty to do more faculty-led study abroad or travel abroad, or there's a couple of us that do what's called Beyond the Classroom international excursions or class situations, and a lot of those are very athlete friendly because of when they occur.
Right.
And then, and also, I guess maybe more importantly, when they don't occur, right? But there's 2 or 3 that come straight out of the School of Business that occur during winter break, and there's one that Coach McGinley and I teach every other year,
Right.
where we go to London for 2 weeks, and then we come back in the spring semester and finish. So basically, our semester starts overseas, and then we come back and finish. And the first time we taught the class, neither Paul or I conceptualized this, but that first night we were in London, like, why did you take this class? And we were just going around, and there were 12 students. 10 of them were student athletes, and they said, well, I would not be able to study abroad otherwise, or to have an international experience. And the same thing with the Iceland class that Les Bleemaster teaches, and he's got a colleague in economics that goes with him, and again, there's classes that occur kind of in and around spring break that wrap in, and so the Center for International Engagement's kind of intentional push on those 2 to 3 week abroad programs, which aren't as immersive as a 6-week program, or not
Yeah.
as immersive clearly as a semester-long program. But if you're a baseball player, when else are you going to study abroad?
Yeah.
If you're a softball player,
Yeah.
when else are you going to study abroad? Right? I mean, people aren't going to study abroad typically their second semester, their senior year.
Yeah.
Right? This has been great. Now I'm finally not playing football anymore. Like,
Yes.
let me not enjoy Trinity. Right? So, like, that doesn't happen, right? And so that's been a really awesome, eye-opening thing for me, that if some of the subtle shifts that Trinity is making through the Trinity Tomorrow plan, like, wait, this significantly benefits
Yeah.
a huge portion of our student body in a way
Yeah.
that those students would not have had a study abroad experience.
Right.
The 10 that first time, and of the 16 the second time, 12.
Yeah.
I mean, there's 22 students that would not have gone abroad, and I know
Yeah.
there's a number of them that also have gone on some of those other trips that
Yeah.
they wouldn't have had an abroad
No,
experience.
right.
And that's a pretty cool thing
Yeah.
to be able to offer.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I noticed that we don't have any questions
Yeah.
coming in yet, and so I don't know that we actually explicitly said, if y'all
Oh,
have
yeah.
any
Oh, yeah.
questions,
Yeah.
feel free to send them in. So in light of knowing that we have like probably 10 minutes left,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I put that out there. So if anybody does
Yeah.
have questions along the topic of engaging students in leadership and what sort of resources we do and just the things that we've been talking
Yeah.
about, please feel free to type those in now, and we'll try to answer those as much as possible.
Yeah.
And do you want to talk about the NCAA Career Center also?
Oh, yes. So there's all different types of resources that are available to student athletes in addition to those that are with the general population. I love the T-Learn website that you talked about, because we're going to send out information through that. And we also get virtual career fairs that are exclusively for
Yeah.
student athletes that we send out that information as well. And then one of the resources that I recently looked up and found to be very helpful in terms of not just knowing what sort of opportunities are out there, but also how to prepare for those opportunities. If you go to the NCAA website and click on the Student Athlete tab, there's an option there that talks about career preparation.
Yeah.
And that's for any former student athlete as well as current student athletes. And so if we have any folks who are listening on the webinar now who are like, yeah, I'm at a transition point,
Yeah.
or what sort of opportunities will get me back to what I love, I definitely think that
Yeah.
would be a resource to take advantage of.
Yeah.
And we'll provide that also.
Yes.
We'll post it
Yeah.
up on a LinkedIn post. So again, anybody that's listening to it knows where that
Yeah.
that link is. So,
Yeah. I think that'd be great.
and I'm looking on the Facebook live stream to see if there are any questions that
Okay.
are coming out in here too. So,
Okay.
just in case.
Yeah.
Now the program, I have a follow-up question about your
Yeah.
program that you're doing in March. Is this, the target audience, is it exclusively students? Is it students and recent alumni, students
Yeah.
and alumni, or starting out because it's a new program, just students?
Yeah. Really, I mean, it kind of started out where I was talking to my group of friends that are alumni in San Antonio. And so it really kind of turned into more recent graduates or recent alumni or graduates of the last 10 years or so. And obviously, really going back into the early 2000s, just because those were people that I knew I had easy access to and could capture their attention pretty easily early on and get the calendar date on their schedule. And then also got some recommendations from some of the coaches, and I'm still adding alumni to that list based on people that the coaches have recommended as well, or that have come back on campus for an event and have shown interest if I'm talking to them about it. So obviously, if there's any alumni that are interested in joining, they're welcome to contact me about that as well. And
Is that also for attending? Like, so if they want to grab
yeah,
knowledge
that's
from
a good
those
question.
individuals?
I hadn't necessarily thought about it that way, but certainly I think that would be a great place for alumni who are looking for, current students to apply to jobs or even to network with other alumni. I think that is a great opportunity and a good aspect that I could focus on when engaging alumni for the event itself, that maybe if they're not there to be a panelist or to really discuss with the current student athletes, what their job is and anyone that's interested in it, how they can kind of get into that career path, but maybe to also network with each other. So it's really kind of an open concept at this point. It's really, I wanted it to be about engagement and about networking, really kind of informal, just because that tends to be the type of event that I feel like our student athletes respond to. And they're obviously, I'm telling them to come in their workout gear and to not worry about, dressing in business casual and really preparing for the interview per se. So I definitely think I'm open to any and all alumni coming, for whatever purpose they're there for. And, I hope in coming years that it may turn out to be where some years it's really about the older generations, some years it's about alumni who are super engaged with the university through other programs that can really speak to what being an engaged alumni is and how important that is. And then other years maybe it really is just a networking opportunity for student athletes to ask questions about interviewing and what you wish you would have done as a student athlete here. And
That's cool.
And so I think it's kind of all three right now, all three purposes right now. Yeah.
Looks like we've got a question.
Oh, yeah.
Yay.
So the question is, how can a student athlete indicate interest in participation on the Trinity Athletics Council or the NCAA seminars? So for the SAC, you can email me. So you can email, my email address is ahazelwo@trinity.edu. So if you have interest in joining that, we would love to have you. And you can also express interest to your coach. And hopefully you know who the SAC member is on your team. So talk with them as well, but we welcome any and all members. It doesn't have to just be one to two members per team. It can be a number of members because we really just want representation there. And then for the NCAA seminars, I think that's something, you guys can speak to, but I think once you become a SAC member, you'll be added to the T-Learn page, and then we'll be able to you'll get access to more of those events. And the hope is that whoever is the SAC representative on your team is promoting those events already to you, but maybe you can help do that better. So, yeah.
Yeah, and also just in terms of some of those, the leadership opportunities, the one that Bree Ratliff went to, and some of the other internship opportunities that are specifically for student athletes, or the postgraduate scholarships. I would encourage students to again to interact with their SAC representative, but also a lot of that will come from their coaches, and then also getting to know us, right? And the deeper the relationships that athletes have, and we say this to all students, quite frankly, is the deeper your relationships with your faculty and your staff and your coaches, the better your experience is going to be. But I would love to, if you are an athlete, or the person asking this question, or it's your son or daughter, send them my way, and I'd be more than happy to talk to them about some of those really cool opportunities, some of which are faculty nominated, and some of which are student nominated.
Yeah. We have another question. Oh, you're welcome. They were saying this is an awesome and eye-opening seminar. Thank you all for doing this. I was wondering if there are other study abroad programs like the London and Iceland trip that are currently up and running, or if there are more to come. And another advice regarding studying abroad as an athlete would be awesome too.
Sure, yeah, and there are other programs. I don't know them off the top. Well, there's Global Studies Berlin is another one.
That would sound awesome.
That happens at the end of the semester. There is one that goes to The Hague also. But looking at the Study Abroad office website is really the way to go there. And then there are also a couple of programs that are 6-week programs that occur in the summer. Shanghai, there's one in Madrid. I think there's another one in China, and I think they've now landed one in Japan also.
Yeah.
All of which have internships built in as well.
Yeah, and then Terrace Tiller. Hi, Terrace.
Hey, Terrace.
He said, great info. Question for student athletes on SAC. Is there any education around helping those athletes learn about governance and leadership? Do you bring in professional athletes who serve as reps for the athlete unions? No, that is a great question. We do try to bring in guest speakers, but we haven't necessarily brought in someone necessarily on the legislation issues or governance around student athletes or NCAA athletics. We do kind of vote on legislation, so we discuss legislation that's up for vote at the NCAA conference, and we have a national SAC that also votes on legislation. So at the conference level, each SAC group from all of the colleges in our SCAC, too many acronyms, they all vote, and then we send those votes to our commissioner, our SCAC commissioner, and then he takes that vote to the national conference and to the national SAC, which then also votes on that legislation. So in terms of governance, that's really the extent of what we've done before, but I would love to get feedback on if you have any ideas of how we could expand that, because I do think that oftentimes there might be changes in legislation or there might be policies that athletes feel like they could have a better understanding of or better representation when these policies are enacted. And so I think those are all areas that we could certainly improve for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that question. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for watching the webinar and joining us. And like we said, to hear from you. So if you have any more questions or feedback, you're welcome to email the three of us. And we hope that you watch some more webinars or podcasts from our Alumni Relations Office, or that you join one of our programs that we are holding if you are an alumni, if you're a student athlete. We hope that you have the confidence now to go find these two on campus and hopefully utilize some of their resources. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for the time. This is great. Appreciate it.
That was awesome.
And don't forget to check out LinkedIn, which is where we'll post some of the information.
Yeah,
Awesome.
definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.